Thank you for downloading Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. In this episode, Sam and I dissect our stunning, and I'm going to say stunning, Game 1 loss to the Pacers and preview our Game 2 bout on Wednesday. We talk about Ty Lue's coaching struggles, Lebrons' statement, maybe? Game 2 fixes, and end with a segment we call Narratives. One final thing, if you're a fan of the Cleveland Browns, check out our Browns podcast, the Orange is Oranger Browns podcast. I'm joined by Browns insider Jeremy in Akron, and we bring you the very best Browns coverage and analysis. We are the premier Cleveland Browns podcast. Check us out at Orange is Oranger. You can find out that anywhere you listen to podcasts. Okay, here it is. Sam and I with our Pacers Game 1 recap and your Game 2 preview.
Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
That sound means it's time for Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. I am your host, Chase Smith, and with me, Cavs insider, national NBA writer, Sam Amico of AmicoHoops.net. Sam, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Chase. How about yourself?
Licking my wounds here after a Game 1 loss, and I have to say, I owe all Pacer Nation an apology.
You said sweet, didn't you?
Right out the gate. I was saying Cavs in 4, wasn't giving the Pacers credit, and I kind of felt like I kind of adopted the Cavs mentality going into Game 1, and Sam, 4 quarters, the Pacers just flat out whooped us, dude. I mean, it wasn't even a game.
No, right off the bat, it was blowout city, and every time the Cavs tried to make a run, that was it.
Yep.
The Pacers responded.
We got it into like 6, a little bit into the 4th, right? And then it just was that what it was? Like the lead and the smallest lead in the second half was 6 at one point.
I think so, yeah. I mean, it got to the point where you thought, okay, just get a stop and get a basket, and whatever it was, whether it was 6 or 7, the Pacers went right down and hit a 3. Yep. So
final score 98-80. Wow, LeBron's first loss since 2012. This is 2018, and LeBron has not lost a first round matchup, and I want to talk about that here in a little bit. But LeBron's first loss since 2012. The Pacers are led by breakout star, I said it, breakout star Victor Oladipo, 32 points. Pacers, you got yourself a squad, and we got ourselves a series, Sam.
Yeah, they've been doing this all year, the Pacers. People have been doubting them. People have been doubting Oladipo. People laughed and mocked that trade. I think that I was probably among them, not publicly, but inside I'm thinking, what are they doing trading Paul George for Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis, who's never accomplished anything? These two guys who are just average players, but what a great story for them, and great coaching job and by Nate McMillan, and what bad news that was for the Cavs in that first game.
Unbelievable. Pacers really never let off the gas. Want to give a couple stats here and kind of led to the Cavs' demise. For the season, the Cavs shot 37% from 3, 37.2%. In Game 1, the lowest of the season at 23.5. And what a time for that to happen, Sam.
Well, and here's another stat for you. They hadn't scored in the first quarter. Their lowest output of the regular season was 17 points. In this game 1, 14 points. So you could make an argument that this may have been their worst game. It definitely was their worst. There's no question about that. And they just weren't able to get any sort of just cohesion, which is shocking for the first game. I mean, it was to the point where it was you guys have been saying all season long, can't wait to get to the playoffs. Just get us to the playoffs. We're not worried about the regular season. We're only worried about the playoffs. So you're only worried about the playoffs, and this is the kind of effort you put forth in the first game, just lacking energy all the way around, where the Pacers were out for blood, not to prove something. So it was a really bad combination.
Yeah, I mean,
right off the bat.
I can't remember the last time a LeBron Cavs team has scored 80 points. I mean, that's insanely low just for a regular NBA team. I mean, maybe aside from the Suns or some of those like lower lottery teams, but 80 points. Kudos to the Pacers. Defense, offense, they're clicking on all cylinders. So were the Cavs just not focused, Sam? I mean, is this going to be a 7-game series? Are the Cavs in trouble?
I don't know if they're in trouble. I think that you have to see how they respond in Game 2. Can LeBron James led team win a game on the road? Yes. Can they win 2 games on the road? Yes. I think once they get the Pacers figured out, and we're going to have to play harder and play smarter, sure, they could win 4 in a row, but could it go 7 games? Yes. Could they lose this series? Yes. They need to get it together because the Pacers, look, they're playing like they have nothing to lose. They were way more aggressive than the Cavs right off the bat, and it's hard to tell now. It's hard to predict. If the Cavs had won that game 98-80, then you think, yeah, it's going to be a sweep or it's going to be 5 games or whatever. But it really, to me, it all comes down to game 2. You have to play well. You have to maybe not dominate, but you have to put your stamp on this series in game 2. Otherwise, this is worrisome. But you got to get guys besides LeBron to step up, and LeBron's got to play better. He's got to bring his A game. He knows that every game didn't take a shot till 10 minutes into the game. You can't do that. You're the leader, and the rest of the team's going to follow your lead.
Which I want to talk about that a little bit, Sam. Is it possible? And my mind likes to go because is it possible that LeBron thought, you know what, all these writers, all these people who have an MVP vote, they voted for James Harden. Do you think LeBron was trying to make a statement by showing them, I'll show you who's the MVP. Here, I won't take a shot for 10 minutes. Here, the rest of the Cavs, you guys play your playoff game. Do you think LeBron, because he can be petty sometimes, he can try to make a statement. Do you think that that was what was going on?
No, but I can't explain what was going on. I mean, I think that part of it was, their offense is drive and kick. And he was doing that. He was penetrating and kicking the ball out. And, a lot of times I think that those guys were open. Rodney Hood was open. Kevin Love missed his first 3 shots, set the tone for the game for him the rest of the game. They had some wide open looks that they didn't knock down. I don't suspect that they'll shoot 8 of 34 on 3 again.
Right.
But, no, Chase, I think that he was kind of feeling out the game, feeling out what the Pacers were going to do, and just did not attack enough early. He wasn't aggressive enough early. Nobody was. And that first quarter, everybody was to blame, him included. And why would he wait that long to take a shot? I have no clue.
And I don't either. And I was scratching my head. And, here's what I do know about LeBron. Everything he does is very methodical and thought out and intentional. So
yes.
I do think whether it was a statement to these writers who said he wasn't the MVP or maybe to Lue with some type of scheme or I think it was trying to say something. Now, what it is, I'm not sure. But I don't know. I just think –
well, let's hope he said it and got it out of his system.
Geez, yeah. Well, then, we don't want to overreact, to game 1. LeBron said it best. He's like, do you think I'm worried about being down 0-1 in a playoff series? No way. And so we want to be careful. So let's turn our attention to game 2, Wednesday night, 7 p.m. TNT game. Pacers, they took home court. Cavs a very all of a sudden pivotal round 1 game. Things that we haven't said in a couple years. Sam, what do you see lined up for game 2?
I think that they'll play with more energy. That's for sure. I think that they're going to have to. And I think they know that, and they'll be prepared. But I don't think that it's going to be easy. They can't just say, you know what, we're going to play with more energy, so we're going to win, because Indiana they're very talented in terms of how they play together. They don't have great individual talent or a ton of all-stars. They have a second-tier all-star in Oladipo, and then a bunch of guys who play well around them. So, I think that the Cavs have to come out with confidence. They have to come out with energy. They're going to have to get way more out of Kevin Love. You can't, he took 8 shots for the game. He took 6 3-pointers and a 14-footer and then a floater. And that can't be the offense from Kevin Love. He's your number 2 guy, no questions asked. Yeah. And it's on both him and the coaching staff to put him in better positions. He can't just be a 6'10" 3-point shooter. I mean, that's good. That's a weapon. But if that's not falling, and if you remember, Chase, last year in game 2 against the Pacers, Ty Lue said, we got to get Kevin Love going. We got to get Kevin Love going. They got him going. He went down. He posted up Lance Stevenson. He drew fouls. Yeah. Kevin Love had his best game of the playoffs last year in game 2 against the Pacers. So, they need to find – and Kevin Love has to do a better job too. You can't just be a rebounder. Now, 17 rebounds, great. I would think that the Cavs would rather see 17 points and 9 rebounds as opposed to 9 points and 17 boards.
Right.
You know, I think that they need him to be that second scoring option, and he has to. It's not all on the coaching staff. It's not all on his teammates. He has to go in there, command the ball, and do something with it. Draw fouls, be physical, be aggressive. Last night he got a shot blocked, or game 1 he got a shot blocked. He was shooting a fadeaway, you know, against a smaller player, and you know, you've got to go up strong and be aggressive. He cannot shrink at the moment, because if he does, they will not win this series. He needs to be, and it's not just all on Kevin Love. Obviously, you don't lose by 18 points and blame it on one guy, but Rodney Hood's got to play better. Rodney Hood's got to be more confident, approach a game with more confidence. If he's going to start at shooting guard, which sounds like it may not be the case, if he does, though, regardless, he's got to look for a shot, be confident in it, and attack the basket. You know, Jeff Green, 0 for 7. You can't have that. You've got to find a way to contribute offensively. You know, and I know Ty Lue likes them defensively, but their defense wasn't that good in game 1. So, you know, you can't say, oh, I really like this guy because he sets the tone defensively, because clearly he doesn't.
Right.
So, you know, there are a lot of things that have to change. George Hill's got to play better, or, you know, start Jose Calderon if George Hill isn't going to get it done. And I don't think George Hill played terribly. He was just kind of running up and down the court, didn't make anything happen. So they've got a lot of things that they've got to clean up, which, you know, what's so interesting about this, Chase, is they really, since LeBron's been back in 2014, they had their best finish to a regular season. They played very well at the end of the regular season. They lost that game in Philly. They had that clunker in Miami. But other than that, they played well and won. And then they come out in the playoffs, and all of a sudden you're totally overmatched. And I think that was a lack of preparation from Ty Lue, frankly. He's, you know, a little too laid back with those guys. And I think that, you know, you've got to be, you know, he said after game 1, we've got to change our mindset. Well, you're the coach. You've got to do that. Right. That's your response. That's all you have to do. You know, X's and O's. Everybody at this level is good at X's and O's. Maybe not great, but good enough. And it's up to you as a coach to get your message across and say, you know what, we're changing our mindset, and we're going to do it right now. And if you don't, you're getting a quick hook if you're not performing well.
You know, I'm looking at the minutes played game 1, and I think in game 2 we've got to see more minutes from Kyle Korver, see his production go. I mean, he was 0 for 3. But you got to give him more minutes if you're going to have that like slash and shoot offense that they like to run. You know, I thought Calderon kind of earned some playoff minutes. He got 9. Like to see him up, and then I think Chetty Usman too. You got to get him, you know, young game 1 against. You know, give him more than 1 minute. I don't know. I just think Lue, he's always tinkering. He's always just like that. He's always that guy in your fantasy football league. He's always tinkering, like on like Saturday, Sunday morning. Like, no, just you know who your players are. Just play them. And so I don't know. Game 2, I'd love to see a little better rotation. And
Chase, if you're confused, imagine how the players feel.
Oh man,
and that's the truth. You know, Kyle Korver's probably like, "What did I do wrong?"
Right.
Now, granted, can you play 12 guys? No, but you got to figure out the best 10 to play. Okay. Now, this is something you've got to work on if you're Ty Lue. If you're going to play LeBron 40 minutes, it's got to be because the game's tight, not because you're getting beat by 18 points. You know, so he has struggled. The bad news is Ty has struggled all season. When that first group was here, when Isaiah Thomas came back and those guys, and then Tristan Thompson came back, they were playing well and winning. And then Isaiah Thomas came along, and Tristan Thompson came along, and Ty felt obligated to play them. You know, and it's like, no, you don't have to play them just because they're healthy. You've won 13 in a row. Remember in January they won, or when was it? November, December, they'd won that 13 games in a row, and then you mess with the rotation because guys come into the rotation. I just thought that was a big mistake. That's not to say he shouldn't have played Tristan, but he shouldn't have automatically taken away Channing Frye's minutes at that time. So my point is, going back to that is an example of, I think he struggles kind of with the rotation, and that even goes back to last season when all of a sudden Derek Williams, who had been playing very well, all of a sudden just stopped playing. For what? He did nothing wrong. He just wasn't in Ty's rotation, even when Ty's rotation wasn't working. So I think that he struggles in that area. You know, I had another writer who said he thinks we were just shooting the breeze, and he said, I think Ty Lue coaches from a sheet. And he said, by that I mean and Mike Fratello has even indicated this. He said some coaches they have their rotation planned out before the game, and it's not changing no matter what, because that's the way it looks on this quote-unquote sheet of paper. Whereas other coaches are in-game coaches. I'd say Greg Popovich is among those. Nate McMillan is among those. Larry Drew seemed to be among those. If you weren't performing, forget what the game plan was. You're out, and we're going to put in somebody else who give them a shot. So they're definitely going to have to do more of that moving forward, or it's just not going to work, because they have one guy. They have LeBron James, who's a super duper star, and the rest of those guys are rotation players who have to be comfortable and in their role and know what to expect. And I think that they've struggled with that most of the season.
We talked about this in our last podcast, our season recap. The Cavs used 29 different combinations of 18 players starting five for the 82 games of the regular season. They had 82 games to figure this out, and here we are, game one of the playoffs, and Ty Lue is still trying to get something working. Sam, let's move to a prediction. Do you have a prediction for game two?
Yeah, I think the Cavs are going to win. I think it'll be a close one, though. I don't think it's going to be easy. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. Simply because the Pacers are good, and the Pacers, Victor Oladipo said after game one, "Look, man, we've been doing this all year long. It's not we've been playing well all year long. We're a confident team, and
Oladipo had some swag, man. He had some pretty much all game, man. He played like he was the best player on the court, and he thought he was the best player on the court. And when a team has no fear, and you said it like nothing to lose, that's pretty dangerous, man.
Well, and they're very clear on who their best player is, who's and they all are very comfortable in the role. They're a very good defensive team. Nate McMillan, the Pacers coach, going back years ago when Seattle Supersonics were still there, he did some really good things and pulled a first-round upset with them. It was with like a young Ray Allen. They had Rashard Lewis. They had some other guys that were still beginning, and he did some. Nate McMillan is a very good playoff coach. It was like early 2000s, it was before Durant, because I think he had moved on after that. Eventually went and coached Portland, did a nice job there. I thought did a solid job, and then now with Indiana, I mean, this was probably his best coaching jobs yet, and his teams are always very fine-tuned. It's us against the world. Nobody expects us to win. He kind of preaches that kind of, hey, nobody believes in us but us kind of mentality. The players buy into it, and they come out like gangbusters. So they're a very, very organized, well-oiled machine. So game two prediction, I do think the Cavs will win. I can't go against LeBron 2 games in a row at home. I still think the Cavs will win the series. I think they'll win it. I initially said 5. I may go 6. I may go 7, but I think that they'll emerge from the series. Like I said, Chase, you know what? Throughout the course of history, there's one thing we've learned in the NBA playoffs is it only takes one game to get it right. And if you get it right, and you come out and all cylinders clicking, then you get that confidence going. And then you play like the Cavs did right after the trade, which was they were shot out of a cannon, right after that trade in February. Many teams have that capability to play like that. And I think that still like that threat, like I think the Pacers, they're playing at the peak of how they can play, I feel like. It's great and consistent, but they don't have that like overdrive that only a handful of teams in the league have. And the Cavs have that potential. And that's it. That's, are you going to play to your potential? You have to now if you're the Cavs. The way this team is built, you have to play with energy, focus, belief, confidence, cohesion, and they've done that. They've proven they can do that. They did that right after the trades. Everybody was, hey, this is great. This is great fun. And I feel like maybe the coaching staff, and Ty Lue in particular, because I thought Larry Drew did a phenomenal job. And I think Ty Lue's getting a C- or so for the season. And I think that, is he holding them back? I hope not. You would hope not. But in order to really believe in him, they've got to go on a little streak here, get this together, and make something of themselves, because guess what? You win this series, you probably get Toronto. Toronto's probably going to beat Washington. And you don't have home court anymore. And if you don't have your act together against them, they'll make quick work of you.
Doesn't get any easier after the series, that's for sure. I'm going to say Cavs win game 2. And as much as the Pacers earned my respect in game 1, I still can't. We have the best player in the world on our team. And I think in the playoffs, it comes down to the best player and the best coach. And I think our player is better than their better coach.
I would agree with that too. I think that, LeBron's the best player in the league still. And although he did not play like it for the whole game in game 1, hopefully for his sake and for the Cavs' sake that he gets it figured out and he's able to do that again in game 2. And if he starts doing that again, they could make quick work of Indy.
So I'll say Cavs in 6. I think the Pacers will take 1 in Indy, but it's LeBron. Listen, statement made, heard, whatever it was. We get it. Now let's get back to winning some games. Sam, I want to close this episode with a segment we like to call narratives. We're already kind of hearing some of the narratives that we're talking about now. Ty Lue, LeBron. What are some narratives that are going to come out of this series if the Cavs win?
If the Cavs win, the narrative, a lot of that narrative will be based on the fact what happens and how they win. Mm-hmm. Because if you remember last year, they swept Indiana and people were still complaining because they looked terrible doing it. Yep. But if they can come out, win this series and win it 6 games, if they win it in 7, people are going to be, hey, they're not winning a championship, or they're not getting to the finals. But if they win the series, the narrative's going to be, they got their act together. This is the way they're going to do it. They're going to fight and claw, and you're not going to be able to hold them down because they have the best player in the game. Mm-hmm. So that would be my narrative assumption should they emerge.
And worst case scenario, Cavs end up dropping this series of round 1 exit. Narratives galore. Sam, what would be on the front page?
Well, first it's going to say our podcast is going to go 2 hours if they lose. That'll be on the front page. But I think that the obvious narratives.
Yeah.
LeBron James is leaving. That's already been the narrative after game 1.
Right.
The other narrative, of course, is they're moving on from Ty Lue, which I think would be more than a narrative. Mm-hmm. And then, but the biggest one would be, okay, well, LeBron's obviously a goner because they lost to the Pacers and he wants to go play with a better team. And, that would be it. That would be the big one, I think. And it would be a fitting and fair narrative if they lost the series.
I think with that, assuming LeBron leaves that narrative, they would probably be saying the team needs to blow it up, right? And kind of get back to this like young core that they have, but probably we're looking at another roster shakeup and all that stuff, which, man, don't buy a house in Cleveland if you're on the Cavs. It seems like that's for sure.
Well, they do have a lot of, I think if LeBron were to leave, worst case scenario,
right,
just about everybody else would still be back. And then you throw in the lottery pick, but so nobody wants
a round 1 exit. They're keeping everyone. They love to stay, and they're not. I mean, I know they have that pick, but no,
they would certainly. They would certainly, if they lose in the first round, a big part of it's probably going to be because of Kevin Love. They would certainly look to trade him to a contender, get some draft picks, and they'd have to take back some money. They would certainly, win or lose, they're going to look to trade Tristan Thompson in the offseason. But we saw he played garbage time only minutes. I suspect that's probably not going to change. I think Ty Lue probably finds him a little bit of a distraction and not good enough to be a distraction.
The understatement of the podcast right there. A little bit of distraction and almost.
I want to put it gently.
You were very kind there, Sam. I went to the Cavs Suns game a couple weeks ago. And I was just like smacking my head. There was a possession in the third quarter, 3 straight trips down the court. LeBron turned it over. And it was the first turnover LeBron had in like a game and a half. Like it broke that streak, but 3 straight times. And it was because Tristan either tripped, was in the wrong place, or like couldn't catch a ball. Like back to LeBron was so pissed. And he just get your head in the game, man. I mean, and not surprising to hear kind of what we've heard from him.
Say whatever you want or the reasons. It's very clear he's not been as focused this season, close to his focus, Tristan. And he's now, frankly, looks out of shape. He's not in the basketball shape. And part of that, I'm sure, is because of the injury. But part of it is, you've got to chalk it up, at least from what you hear, to discipline and training and that kind of stuff. So he's just not – he's been a non-factor for them, and that's been unfortunate because he was such a huge factor the past 3 seasons. And
especially the championship run. A lot of great mismatches for the Warriors. When I say blow it up, I don't mean like everyone, but I mean a lot of the staples of the past 4 years. Like J.R. Smith would probably be gone. Tristan Thompson obviously gone. Kevin Love, players that have been through the ringer and battled these wars with LeBron. If LeBron does leave, I would begin to assume that probably a Kyle Korver probably would be gone as well. These guys that
the older guys. I think you keep the Nances and the Jordan Clarksons and the Rodney Hoods, who's a restricted free agent. I think you would re-sign him. You'd have your draft pick. But, yeah, man, that's a whole world that we don't want to think about right now. But, you may not have to. If this team gets back to the finals, I think they're in a good spot. And, if they get it right, if they get it corrected and get it figured out, they will get back to the finals because they have the best player in the game, and you need a super-duper star, and they have one.
Yep. So the closing narrative will be this. No matter what happens, you can count on the Cavs on the Break NBA podcast and AmicoHoops.net to be there covering every story. So don't forget that. We want to thank you all so much for downloading and listening. Follow us on Twitter at Cavs on the Break. Also check out any article, any latest news and information for the Cleveland Cavaliers at AmicoHoops.net. Also, if you have a business, if you have an internet business or any type of brick and mortar company, we are looking for sponsors for our podcast, for any of our segments. Please email us at podcast@cavsonthebreak.com. We'd love to get you some of our information. If you guys can do us a favor, subscribe, rate, and review our podcast. It does help with iTunes and other search algorithms. Let us know your thoughts, what you think. We'd love to hear from you. You can follow Sam on Twitter at AmicoHoops. You can catch all of his work and writings at AmicoHoops.net. Again, follow us on Twitter at Cavs on the Break and email us at podcast@cavsonthebreak.com. Sam, final thoughts before we say goodnight here.
Well, first of all, our listeners can't see you, but I can, and I really like that Cleveland Indians hat, and I need to get one just like it. And you know what? Hey, I'm excited about the Browns for the first time in 112 years, so I'm going to get some more Browns gear too. But as far as the Cavs go, I just think, hey, Game 2 is really everything. Could they win 2 in Indy? Yes. But I don't, as a guy who covers the Cavaliers, I don't want to have to hear it if they lose Game 2 at home. And they sure don't either. If they lose Game 2, like you said, it's a pivotal game. Yep. And I think they'll be okay. I think they'll emerge from this series. And if they do, we'll see what could happen against Toronto.
Sam, you're going to Game 2, correct?
Yes, I am.
Have a great time. Enjoy the game. And we will let's do a Game 2 recap. What do you say? A Game 2 kind of recap?
I think that sounds perfect.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for your time, everybody. Sam, have a great night. Mike Breen, take us out.
Congratulations, Cleveland. Your decades-long wait is finally over. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.